Good morning. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming so early. And actually, quite a few of you have been here for half an hour. And we already had quite a few questions. It's great. My name is François Doremieux, and I'm part of the product group that builds Skype for Business and actually the infrastructure that powers Skype on-prem, Skype online, and Teams. So same shared type of capabilities in voice.
My name is Jamie Stark. I'm a colleague of Francois's. Francois and I have had the pleasure over quite a long time of talking about voice and talking about PBX systems and talking about how customers can move into Skype for Business voice. So thank you all for coming out early. Congratulations on making it almost halfway through Ignite. There's still a lot more to come, but we're super excited to have you all here and joining us. What we're going to be doing today, first kind of setting the stage a little bit and talking about Skype voice, talking about what it means to have a PBX replacement with Skype, thinking about some strategy and some tactics around the transition, as Francois indicated. We've had a couple questions already, just as we've been kind of setting up here, that dive straight into the question of contact centers and call routing and all sorts of great things. Don't be worried. This is a 200-level session, so we're going to kind of keep it business focused and think about our strategy in our now 43 minutes left together. We are very, very pleased to have a customer joining us as well, so we're going to have an opportunity to hear from your peer, to kind of talk about the process of moving onto Skype voice. And we'll also have the opportunity to talk about some new partner offerings that we are announcing at Ignite that we're similarly very excited about, that really helps customers and SIs through the process of transitioning, specifically with Avaya. And so speaking of Avaya, I can't help to notice a fairly robust audience here, and with Avaya in the title, I presume that some of you have Avaya PBXs in your environment. Could you raise your hand if you do? Okay, could you keep your hand up then as well if you're also an SI and you help other customers with Avaya? I got a bunch of SIs here as well. Fantastic. So I'm glad that we had the opportunity to do this session, because it is because of your feedback and the feedback of customers like you that had us carve out time at Ignite specifically to focus on this topic. And we've been hearing from customers consistently about this topic, that the recent news from Avaya has really focused the attention of enterprise IT on the topic of communications. And we're not going to spend any time on the news or the status or anything like that. We're just kind of here to explore the topic. And what we found is that for many customers, this has fundamentally changed the priority of their projects with relation to communications. And specifically thinking about, is this the impending event that is going to now drive our organization through to kind of really make these steps? Whether those steps are to first get into unified communications with Skype for Business, or whether those steps are to go even further and think about progressing from Skype for Business and instant messaging and presence and meetings into voice, or even going further than that and really looking at kind of completely removing other PBX systems from your environment and going, kind of completely 100% onto Skype voice. And so what we found is that even if Skype for Business was on the radar in the past, like this has changed, and now it is elevated in priority so much more. So I just, for the purposes of making sure that we're all on the same page, I wanted to take a couple minutes and just talk through, what some of the benefits are of Skype for Business voice. And I know many of you I have seen at shows for several years now that Francois and I have had the opportunity to present at. And so for those of you that are very familiar with what we do here, you can, please pardon my opportunity to make sure that we're all on the same page with respect to the complete voice platform that Skype for Business provides. All of the capabilities that are necessary in an enterprise can be satisfied with Skype for Business. You know, it's not just about kind of making, receiving, and transferring calls, but also very sophisticated call routing scenarios, and also very sophisticated cases of being able to operate with phones and mobile and your PC and your workstation across your environment, whether you're on the road like we all are here at Ignite and being able to be productive with your telephony, at home, or of course in the office. And then even further, being able to increase the agility and move from an on-premises environment up to Office 365, and there's a variety of topologies there that we're gonna discuss briefly that you have an opportunity to participate in. But fundamentally, the value proposition is around eliminating the need for a separate PBX system and all of the business benefits that come with that, of consolidating to a single platform and having that platform be really thoughtfully designed and really thoughtfully architected with scenarios end to end. And so when I think about the capabilities of Skype Voice, I think about them in the buckets of being able to have calling peer-to-peer, calling on net, very simply within my workstation, being able to call out to the public switch network, and a variety of integration capabilities there. Having the enterprise calling features that are required for all of your users, for the admins to be able to help manage the CEOs, to the developers who very rarely pick up their phone and kind of shudder a little bit when a call comes in. You know, all of your users have an opportunity to benefit from the capabilities that are present in Skype for Business. And that capability extends not just into the desktop, but down into the network as well, where especially in the server platform, we have a tremendous amount of capability to integrate with your existing network infrastructure, whether that be your application delivery controllers and your firewalls, but down into your session border controllers, and all of the other pieces of infrastructure that you have to operate and manage your network. And that set of capabilities, bringing that to market, has really resulted in a tremendous amount of validation. And these are just two data points that are some of my personal favorites with respect to the delivery of voice seats in the market, Microsoft being preferred by more customers than any other IP PBX vendor. We're not even an IP PBX vendor. And that 79% of US enterprises, your peers, are either in the process of deploying or in the process of planning to deploy Skype for Business, including telephony, not just the instant messaging and presence, but also the capabilities for voice. And we offer a tremendous amount of choice with respect to that deployment methodology. And so we're going to be talking primarily about the server products here today, but it's really important to understand that it's not just the way that the server operates on its own, but the server also has the facility to connect up to Office 365 in a hybrid topology, being able to then scale across the cloud so that way you can have more and more of your workload operating out of Office 365 until in many cases customers actually have their entire workload for meetings and voice operating out of Office 365. In some cases with PSTN services actually provided directly from Microsoft, with some tremendous benefits there. But with this choice, of course, comes the question of, well, how do I rationalize this and how do I think through this, and what are the right kind of ways to characterize these different options? And so this is where I want to transfer over to Francois as he can kind of talk through that question.
So one of the questions that customers who have, like you, Avaya PBXs, other PBXs, and want to replace them ask is, well, now you have offerings for voice in the cloud, voice on-prem. How should I think about that? And we're going to be very objective and pragmatic about it. It's very much a case-by-case situation for our customers. It depends on their requirements, on a number of characteristics. That said, what we've observed at large is at this point in time, and there's practical reasons for that, we'll talk a little bit more about that, customers that are migrating from Avaya in most cases today would embrace the server-based solution. And the way I think of it is really, going from a mature and proven solution that probably would be considered in some ways conservative or risk-averse to a solution that's also a little bit more on the mature side, like the server we have. And I'll talk about the history in a second. We do, however, see already today quite a few of the smaller customers, maybe the ones who have simpler requirements or a little bit smaller scale, go directly to Cloud PBX. So those two options do exist. But today we're probably going to spend more time on the one where people go to the server version. One of the reasons is that we are still to deliver some of the capabilities in Cloud PBX. And we know that, we're working on it, it's a matter of time. But for example, if you need branch office resiliency, which is something that many people want, well, that drives you towards the server offering. And there's a couple of other capabilities like this that I've listed on the slide. We will, over time, address those. And I think this is probably a 2 to 3 years type of time frame that those type of, let's call them gaps, if you will, might still be there. But the intent is really that we'll close all of those. Which means that in most cases, if you're looking at fairly complex situations, including potentially contact center situations or industrial deployments, you have a ton of decked phones, you have a lot of analog lines, you might actually, in all likelihood, consider the server deployment. And that's okay. We will also facilitate migration from that server deployment to cloud when you're ready, when we're ready. This is an illustration of how we've gone about making this product a mature product and this voice offering a proven mature offering. It's a very, very complete capability. Now, is it a PBX? No, and it's not intended to do 100% of what a PBX does. In many cases, it would not even make sense, but it addresses both in terms of our core capabilities, but also in terms, there should be a pointer, I don't see it, but also in terms of the ecosystem's capabilities. It addresses the full set of needs that our customers have. For example, Microsoft does not offer a full-fledged contact center capability in the server. We offer something called RGS, Response Group Service, which is a fairly decent small-scale ACD-like and with some interactive capabilities in there, routing capability. Certainly a significant improvement of our traditional hunt groups, but not a full-fledged contact center. But we have a wide range of partners that address those contact centers' needs very, very well. Ooh. Probably not too far forward. I'm not going to detail this again, but the important thing is that we're working in locksteps. Microsoft's capabilities, both core capabilities and platform, our ecosystem's capabilities, and our customers' perception and maturity with respect to our capabilities, those things have been progressing over the past 10 years or so, to the point where today, as Jamie was saying, we are setting the pace and number one chosen, one shipping vendor. So how do you make this happen? And I'm going to spend quite a bit of time on this slide. There's a lot of important elements here. One aspect is, in most cases, people who do a PBX replacement with Skype have already Skype deployed for instant messaging and presence, maybe for meetings. And we find that this is one of the critical success factors. It doesn't mean it's a must, and it's very possible to do it otherwise, but it's one of the critical success factors. One of the reasons for that is that by the time you deploy your voice, having layered instant messaging and presence, and then typically meetings and PSTN conferencing, which is a great way of making economic sense of the deployment, you will have rationalized your network. Your users will be familiar with the tools. Your users will have the adoption and satisfaction with the tool, especially if you've dealt with the call quality aspects and so on, that ensure that your voice deployment will be much more successful. Voice is also typically a slow deployment. It takes, side-by-side type of process. And on the other hand, you can, excuse me, do the transition from a meetings point of view in a very, very fast manner. Not necessarily in one step, but relatively quickly. So that's one of the ways to approach it. How do you then add voice to that? Pretty much the same way you would add a new PBX. If you have Avaya and you want to deploy Cisco, what are you going to do? You're going to do a PBX to PBX trunking interconnection. you're probably going to use an SBC. You might take the SBC and put it in such a manner that all the trunks land on the SBC, and then at the SBC, you're going to decide where it points, this server or that server, maybe with an Active Directory dip. Well, how about doing exactly the same thing in this case? That's what we do. That's the way we interpret and we bring Skype for Business server from the point of view of enterprise voice. Don't do it at the client level. That's a mess. It will not satisfy your users or anybody. Do it by PBX to PBX trunking interconnection. Very proven. We've had that for 10 years, maybe, something like that. And works very, very well. When you do this, what we see typically as the best way is to move users ahead of moving some of the elements of the infrastructure. Most of the users have extremely little dependency on the infrastructure. You might have a bunch of analog lines or, again, decked phones or whatever that will be difficult to move, maybe for economic reasons or others. And they might be a project in themselves. But you have the ability to start moving those users who have basic needs, and you can actually give them an immediately more satisfactory experience. Remote working, more nomadic capabilities, mobile capabilities. As you do that, there's some things to keep in mind. You might have a web of bosses and admin assistants. Boss admin is a feature that exists in PBXs, exists in Skype. But it's a proprietary feature. There's nothing wrong with that term. It's just that there is no standard for it. So you can't have your, say, some of the bosses on Avaya, some of the admin assistant on Skype. And that would result in a broken experience. So you need to look at homogeneous groups. Same thing if you have hunt groups. Who's part of my hunt group? Okay, let's move that hunt group to RGS and the users as well. Don't break those type of things. That takes a little bit of preparation. That takes a little bit of planning, a little bit of data, and we'll talk a little bit about how we can facilitate that in a second. One of the key questions we get all the time from a user experience point of view is, should I give my users a phone or not? There is no good answer. It's the answer that works for you and for your users. What we found is, if prepared well, and especially if done progressively, starting with IMN presence, audio, meetings, and people get a headset or a device during the meeting phase, they're very naturally comfortable in the most cases with not having a desk phone. If the first thing they see is their desk phone going away and a new tool popping up on their desktop, that will be a slightly different experience. There's also, as always, specific use cases. One very common use case is the admin assistants. They might have a particular affinity for a device on their desk or not. What we found as a key success factor is spending a particular amount of time in communicating with them, understanding their needs, training them, accompanying them. They have the power to make a successful deployment less successful if they're dissatisfied. So that's one of the things that is an important takeaway. So now the $64,000 question, contact center. And that's a question that I personally have pretty much every time we talk about Avaya migration. There is not a single contact center case. You might have an internally facing 5-user contact center that's pretty much a glorified hunt group on a shared asset PBX, which is the same PBX that you use for the hunt group, for the users, for the infrastructure, and so on. Our answer to that is absolutely you can migrate that, and RGS is a perfect solution for that. There's no need to look any further, no need to go purchase something more complicated. You might also have a more structured contact center, 100, 200, 250 people, or maybe even more, that shares assets as well. And of course, one of the goals is to remove your Avaya PBX, your physical assets. It might be end of life or whatever. So you want to migrate that contact center. In that case, what we would recommend is to use one of our partner solutions. Those partner solutions are applications that run on top of the Skype for Business server pool. They may or may not have dedicated pools for that, but in most cases they don't. Those applications are very proven, many deployments for 5 years and more, extremely successful, economical compared to more traditional big brand contact centers, even though we increasingly also have big brands on top of it. Again, work very well and enable the same type of user experience, the same client, Skype, that other users would have or that the same users have when they're not a contact center participant. That has been an extremely successful process for us in migrating at the same time. Of course, you need to pray for that, the users and the contact center. The last category is the large-scale productive contact center that has separate assets. Our recommendation in that case, unless you have really a crisis, but that's a part of the Avaya business that appears to be still a very strong focus on their part. What we hear from most customers is, it's working, I don't want to touch it first. I'm going to migrate the rest of my infrastructure. I'm going to retire the PBX portion. The ACD, the rest, and all of those dedicated assets, I'm going to keep for the contact center. You know, it might be 2,000 people. That's not something I want to touch overnight. I'm going to engage into a long-term discussion with partners of Microsoft, such as Genesys, for ultimate replacement of that. Credible contact center partners that also leverage our technology and natively interoperate with us. But I'm going to make those two different projects. I'm going to conduct the PBX replacement for normal users and normal infrastructure project first, and use SBC to SBC connectivity initially with, oh, not SBC to SBC, PBX to PBX through SBC connectivity to make that happen. So is this simple? No. Does this require a lot of process management? Absolutely. But that's something that's been done hundreds and hundreds of, probably thousands of times. I'm very familiar with many implementations. Today, we're actually lucky to have one customer that is going through this, is in the process of going through this, and I would like to welcome them on stage. Paulo and Farnaz, if you want to join us. From Kellogg. Welcome, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Do you want to give us a little bit of a sense for Kellogg and what you're doing, and yourself as well, if you don't mind?
Yeah. Hopefully everybody knows that Kellogg is a leader breakfast and snacks company globally. We are in the IT area based in Chicago. I'm the leader of the Unified Communications and Collaboration Group, and I've been working at Kellogg for 18 years.
Farnaz Hafezi, I'm the lead engineer, Skype for Business with Kellogg. I've been about 3.5 years now.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
It's great to have you. Can you give us a little bit of a sense for your telephony trajectory and where you're coming from, your vision, and where you're at this point in time?
Yeah, so before we started on the journey of implementing Skype for Business, we actually had a very mixed and very old telephony system on the different locations, and it was the same case across the globe. So we got to a point that it was very evident that we needed to take an action, and this was even before the Avaya announcement. We started to evaluate what was going to be the platform that we selected for replacing the PBX systems, and we decided to go for Skype. Our long-term vision is to complete our deployment and actually have 100% implementation of Skype for Business Enterprise Voice globally.
What were some of the factors that had you choose Skype for Business?
I think cost saving was the first motive here. So we already had Link 2013, IM persons, and the conferencing in place. And we are a big Microsoft shop, of course. So I think that kind of was a good motive to see more cost saving here.
Yeah, very good, very good. What was the project like? How did you kind of conceptualize it? How were you breaking up the phases? Like that sort of thing. Like how was that run?
So as Francois mentioned, it was very evident to us that it was going to be a very complex project. So we actually spent a good amount of time on doing the design and planning at the beginning. We have been running the rollout project for more than a year now. And once we have the planning in place, we went first, we decided to choose a specific set of user groups to implement. We went with IT first. We implemented a couple of remote locations to kind of improve the process, identify what was going to be the issues there. And then we started addressing our headquarters, which is the location that has the more VIPs, the more admins, the more all the GLTs are there, all the leadership team. So it was very important to have it done right.
Do you agree with my point about admin assistance?
Oh yeah, so one point that I had there is, this project is not going to be, if you have 100% successful implementation, that's not going to be enough. You have to have user acceptance at the same time. Otherwise, you're just going to implement something that is going to be rejected, and you'll have to come back and do something else, right? So I think we realized that, and because of that reason, we decided to actually have a OCM, so change management group that partnered with us. We decided to provide white glove service on the VIP locations. We had pre-training. We were on site ahead of time. We did cutover, and then we had training again right after cutover and follow-ups after. So that all those things have helped us show the users the value of the tool, and kind of enable them to let their desk phones go and move into the phone in the computer, right?
Talking of desk phones, what's your policy? Are you removing most desk phones? Are you giving people phones back?
No, we are actually trying to minimize the use of desk phones. I think we are only deploying desk phones on the chair areas, like for example, for emergencies or some phones that are shared across different chips in the supply chain locations. But we are providing headsets to the users, and we're actually letting them choose between 3 or 4 approved standard headsets ahead of time. We deploy them 2 or 3 weeks ahead of the cutover, so that we actually enable P2P on the headset ahead of time, so they get familiar. They already had the Skype client because IM and Presence was already enabled. And then they have that period for P2P in which they can start to get familiar with the headset and having their phone on the computer. And then we do the cutover and remove the desk phones from there.
Can you talk a little bit about the interoperability and the coexistence pieces? You know, Francois kind of talked about some of the different topologies there. Like, I'm just kind of curious of what your experience was and what you guys chose to do. Yeah? So
we do have the coexistence scenario, especially with our sites in Europe where they deploy their own telephony kind of gateways. They have Cisco in place, they have Avaya in place. So we do the SIP trunking between the legacy telephony system to the Skype for Business side. And until they get to a point that they are completely ready for the 100% SIP migration with the provider in terms of the user adoption and everything, and then at that point we will just decommission the legacy system and we will move to 100% Skype for Business.
Excellent.
So in North America, we are kind of 90% on Skype for Business right now, but we do have sites that they have the coexistence scenario in Europe.
That's
in
fantastic.
Asia.
That's fantastic. So look out to the audience and imagine that you, prior to doing your migration, you're seated in this audience, and what's the kind of key thing that you wish you could have told yourself before starting the project? Because many of these people here are in that spot right now.
Actually, who's getting ready to start a project? Yeah.
So look at these hands. And what are the 1 or 2 key things that you would tell everyone here who's in that position?
I will reiterate the one I mentioned before, right? This project success is not only about having 100% successful implementation. It's actually about convincing your users that you are implementing a better system than what they have right now. Because that's going to make it so you can do a rollout more easily, and you don't have to come back and handle escalations and have angry customers. So that's one. The other one is be aware of the difference and the special requirements of the different location and branches that your business have. In our case, one big lesson learned that we had is we started implementing on offices, sales offices, more of desk users. And once we started going into supply chain plants, locations, we started to get other issues, right? So they use telephony systems for doing paging, for doing shift changes, and they have shared devices. So be aware of those requirements, do your assessments ahead of time, make sure that you are not only doing assessments of the telephony system and the PBX configuration itself, but also what are the needs in the floor of your users. And I think those were the main ones.
Right, and I kind of echo what just Paulo said about user acceptance, training, and user expectation comes first. I think this is the big lesson that we learned in our first deployment that we did it for IT people. We were so focused on the technical side of it to make sure everything is smooth that we forgot about the user training, because we thought by default these are IT people and they are on board, but that was not the case. So even the user expectation for the VP was important, that we found out that they were complaining about quality not being good when they are driving 80 miles per hour on the highway. Of course, the quality is not perfect. So we learned our lesson. We did a better job with training for the next phases, and we did more hand-holding for the users, and we made sure that the deployment goes smooth. Yeah.
Wonderful. Maybe a last question, if you don't mind. Can you tell us whether you've had to migrate any contact centers, or how you're looking at that at this point, or small hunt groups, or anything like this?
So we do not have a third-party solution. Most of our big contact centers are still on the legacy system, so that's coming up for 2018 program. But we leveraged auto-attendant in exchange for small use cases, and also response groups for the small contact centers that we had in headquarters. But anything big, service desk, anything bigger than like 50 or 60 agents, they're still on the legacy system. So we are looking for a good solution for next year to implement that.
So that's coming up for 2018. That's on the docket for next calendar year. Very good. Excellent.
Great. Thank you so very much for
really appreciate you joining us. Thank you. Let's give him a hand, everybody.
Thank you.
So, just thanks again. Just really appreciate having the opportunity to hear the stories and to know that yes, this can be done, and this is absolutely a conceptualized project that you two can accomplish. One of the things, though, that we've realized in working with lots of customers over time is that migration can be hard, and we want to kind of explore this topic a little bit of what is it that makes migration difficult. Many times the PBX and Skype for Business are going to have wildly different requirements. For example, everything in Skype for Business is based in Active Directory. We use Active Directory fundamentally as our identity and authentication mechanism, whereas the PBX may have no idea of the manner in which Active Directory is configured. Very, very often, the PBX has existed in the site for years and years, and there's been drift in that configuration. From the original intent of the deployment of the PBX, now, 5-10 years later, that's a very different scenario. And so unless you've been incredibly rigorous in your documentation, what exists, maybe written down versus what exists in the actual premises can be significantly different. And as we've kind of talked about a little bit, the functionality that's provided by Skype for Business may be slightly different in name or action than what you find in the PBX system. Of course, we have things like delegation, but that's not called delegation in the Avaya world, right? We have concepts of shared line appearance. We have concepts of ring down groups, and they're called different things, and they can operate slightly differently. Fundamentally, all of these things, come together in a manner that really has an opportunity for there to be error as you think about that migration process. And so one of the things that is kind of fantastic is that we have the opportunity to have software be a part of this process. So let's actually get software in place to help address these issues. And instead of thinking about the written down documentation, let's actually use the real configuration that's available in the PBX. Let's extract that configuration automatically. Let's take that configuration of both trunks and users, normalize that data into a kind of vendor-independent data structure that then we can look through for errors, and we can match, oh, this user with a name and has an extension in the PBX is actually this SIP URI and this Active Directory credential. Then after we've done that, we can export that configuration into Skype for Business, and as part of that process, actually change the routing in the source PBX so that now that user is routed over to Skype for Business as opposed to a station in the PBX. And there are products in the market that do this. And so we've extended our IT Pro Tools program to include now a category of migration tools. And I'm so excited and proud to announce at Ignite that we have 2 partners that are progressing through the migration program. Unimax with their Migration Pro product, and Univonics Migrate. Now, in other partner programs, what we do is we have the partner come in and they will go to a third-party lab and they will just do a series of testing in the third-party lab. Both of these products have completed that process. But what's different about migration is that it's actually dealing with user creds, and it's kind of a big deal. And so we wanted to be extra sure with validation with real customer deployments. And so Univonics has completed that. Unimax is in the process of completing that. And so Univonics has now completed the migration program. They're going to be certified. Unimax is right behind. So you have 2 products here that have an opportunity to take all of that configuration information from the source PBX, configure that into a data structure that then you can edit, then you can tune, and have that then be exported into Skype for Business. The return on this is dramatic. Unimax has a variety of ROI tools. Univonics does as well. They actually have theirs online in addition. So you can go and you can check out this URL. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to kind of click through it today. But fundamentally, there's a tremendous amount of benefit here. Not only can your deployment be faster, but you can do so with less opportunity for error. And that really results in a pretty dramatic cost savings. And as a result, when your end users now then start up on their day one with Skype for Business, they have the same configuration, they have the same capabilities, and you can assert that through the documentation that's provided by the software. So we're actually continuing to look for additional customers to be able to participate in this TAP program, and if you're interested, don't hesitate to ping me directly on this. And we're going to have additional partners as well coming into this program and qualify to be able to support an even wider variety of PBX systems than the Ciscos and Avayas that we're doing today. And so what we want to leave you with is this kind of very simple message. We are here and we are ready to replace your PBX, and we're here to help in that process.
Not only are we ready, we've done it quite a few times.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Yes, indeed. And all customers like you can go through and can do this with the right level of planning, with the right level of support. Most larger customers, like we talked about, or feel really comfortable going from proven solution to proven solution, but the cloud is also available in there. And our partner offerings now really do have an opportunity to impact the speed and the accuracy and the cost of this migration. And really be able to take some of the dollars that you've allocated to that migration and move those towards adoption, move those towards integration, move those towards additional facilities within your project. So we actually have a couple minutes left for questions. What I'd like to do is put up this slide here that is our curated list of highly relevant sessions. If you come to this session, we think you may be interested in content similar to this. But in the last few minutes that we have left, we'd love to be able to take some questions. We think that there are a couple in the audience based on the conversations that we were able to have prior to the session starting. But we just ask that you have you come up here to the microphone so that everybody has an opportunity, including us, to hear your question and that it gets captured for the recording. You're all so polite. Thank you. Over there.
Hello. Extension dialing, I was actually a question for the Kellogg folks. Were your users really used to extension dialing in Avaya? Was that something you had to rip away from them? Do you have to change it? How about the phases of implementation and it not working?
Do you want to join us back? I don't know if it's on. It may not be.
We used to have the 4-digit dialing, but we kind of ripped it away.
Just ripped it
yes,
away from
completely. So we have the full 10-digit dialing for a US, even their pins for their voicemail. It was a little bit challenging at the beginning, but we, as I mentioned, we worked on the user adoption part of it, and we showed them that you really don't need to memorize any extension while you have your Skype for Business, and you can easily look up any contact and with one click can call that person.
So training was your thing?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
If I may add very briefly, we do support obviously extension dialing, but we do indeed recommend that people go to fully 164. It's so much simpler. There might be circumstances where there's pockets where you just can't completely do away with that, so we do support it. But at large, the simplification in dial plan that you can create in those type of deployments, with a real global system, so much worth it. I have in mind deployments of 400,000 seats or lines of enterprise voice at companies that went completely 164 globally, and they love it.
Please.
So at California State University at Chico, our deployment is much the same as Kellogg's, however, on a smaller scale. We've been following this product for 10 years now, and now it's mature enough to deploy on our campus. We're successful into deploying it here. However, my fear is with Teams and things like that, the strategy of telephony within Microsoft is a little unnerving to me, simply because I come from the telephony world, and traditionally we have something on-prem for 10 to 15 years that's rock solid. My fear is that 5 years down the road we're going to have to be forced migrating to the cloud where we might not be comfortable in doing so, or the product might change dramatically where we might be looking again for another solution. Help me out in regards to longevity for Skype for Business.
As a graduate of the California State University at Chico with an information and communication systems degree from Mr. Terry Curtis, and a computer science minor, I'm very proud to see you here. Thank you so much for coming out.
I knew why you wanted to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, thank you for coming out. Some of my most early and dear memories of telephony was going underneath one of the main buildings on campus and seeing the nest of punch-down blocks for all the different extensions that were operating at the time, well before I think we had any voice over IP out there. To answer your question very simply, there is no plan for us to discontinue the server whatsoever.
Actually, there is the reverse plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously, as we've announced, we are actively in the development of the next release of the server. We plan to have that be available by the end of next calendar year. That's going to be entitled Skype for Business Server 2019. Our planning time horizon doesn't extend beyond that, but there's no plan whatsoever to have that be a terminal release of Skype for Business Server.
We have something like in the order of 15 million users of enterprise voice essentially on the server today. And there is absolutely no suicidal thought that we would disconnect those users.
Absolutely not.
We hope that we can provide incentives that people look at a cloud solution and say, well, this is actually something I want to tend towards and I'm interested in. That's the motivation we want to give. But the taking the rug from underneath your feet is not the thinking at all.
Good. We trust in our alum, and we expect to see you on campus soon.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Absolutely.
Probably one more question on the record, and then we'll probably have to.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I may be in the wrong room specifically, but we've started our journey with live communication server. That slide that you had on there, we've been on that whole journey. To the extent that we felt that we weren't expertise enough, because this is a very complex technology, that we were hosting it on ourselves, on an infrastructure as a service. Finally, we said we just want to get out of that business. We don't have enough staff to host it. It's very complex. So we went to a hosted solution of Skype. And that's a journey in and of itself. But we're still struggling with quality and reliability of the Skype platform. Probably because we're not the classic firm. Our firm really is, all of our associates or our employees are virtual. They either work at the client, they work from home. We do have offices, small offices around the country, but it's not like a traditional intranet. We're a tenant in a building. We use their ISP. We have Wi-Fi. You know, it's kind of almost like working from home in a sense, with a little more sophisticated, technology. But the bottom line is, we're now at the point where we're saying, okay, we're going to give Skype one more last chance potentially. Maybe that is we move to another hosted solution, Skype provider. Maybe it's we move to Skype Online, because of the value that we're seeing there with the infrastructure that Microsoft is, with its private network, the resources you guys have, and probably for a customer like us that has been on this long journey, you want us to succeed. So I'd love to talk to you offline to see what other resources we can get to improve our experience. But sorry for the history there. The bottom line question was, are some of these tools that help you migrate where you're already on the Skype platform, are you looking into tools to help that transition? For example, you lose your meeting ID, so that's disruptive to the firm. The last time that we had to do that was when our platform provider upgraded from Link hosted provided solution to Skype for business, and there we lost our meeting IDs again. And it was a great tool that you could use that each individual had to run.
Right.
But that's a manual process. It has to have the user doing it. So I was just wondering if you could comment on additional capabilities, tools, if you want to call it that, for these upgrades, the migrations, and even in our case, we're going to be, if we migrate to Skype Online, presumably that's going to be another scenario of the meeting IDs changing. So I just wanted to see if you could comment on that.
So, first, with respect to your scenario and your topology, there are many, many customers who operate like you do with respect to having associates being, at the work site with customers, and that's the majority of their connectivity. I think specifically of Accenture in this case, that has one of the largest Skype for Business deployments in the world. They're actively moving forward with voice at tremendous scale. And they've actually been out, I want to say the last 2 Ignites, they've been out sharing their story of the way that they prosecuted quality. Now, the fact that they operated their implementation really gave them a lot of opportunity to prosecute quality in a way that was very rigorous. So there is some opportunity to go and check out what their story is and kind of how they thought through the quality question. With respect to the tooling, we absolutely look at partners to be able to provide scenarios where we're not able to do so ourselves. With respect to migrating to online, we absolutely think that that's a core scenario that we want to be able to make as whole as possible. And if there are gaps in there, if there are cases there where we're not able to do that, then we absolutely do look to our partner community. We haven't made a call yet on the migration scenario because really the really the burning need in the marketplace has been around, hey, help me kind of think about getting off of my existing telephony platform as opposed to moving from kind of a Skype for Skype or Skype for Business server into online.
Is there a
I'm
fast track?
No, I'm afraid we're a little bit over time. So we may want to take the other questions here at the podium, if you don't mind. Want to thank people very much for attending. Want to thank Polo and Farnaz again. Thank you.
Thank you.